Yeah, we are live, guys. So, Sundaram, I can start.
Okay, thank you, Suhas. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone are safe and doing good. Before getting into the session, let me give you a small introduction about ng-keralam. So, ng-keralam is a community to share and gain knowledge on Angular. This is our first meetup, and we are planning to do it for every month, maybe one meetup per month. So, initially, we had this idea, and we were not sure who we have to approach as speakers. And then we came to know about Santhosh and Pankaj. They are doing a lot of contribution to the Angular community. Santhosh is a GDE for Angular and web technologies. He does a lot of open source contributions and also he writes blogs on in-depth community. Pankaj is also GDE and also Microsoft MEP. He also does contribute to Angular community by writing and speaking in meetups. Thanks Santhosh and Pankaj for accepting the invite. I hope we will do more events in the future. So the first session, we have Santhosh who will be sharing his ideas on NgRx. If you have any doubts, just mention in the comments. We will pick this up and once after the talk is over. Now it's time to get into the session. Over to you, Santhosh.
Yeah, just a second. Let me just tweet about it. Yeah, hey, hello everyone. I hope you are enjoying your Saturday, and we are supposed to have two amazing sessions. I'm not sure about the first one, which I'm going to give, but I'm sure the Pankaj will give you a solid advice on Angular Forms. So let's start with NgRx. So I'm sure you might have heard about a state management framework, I would say, and it's pretty popular, right? So I'm not going to talk about the other state management frameworks, how they work. I'm just going to talk about NgRx. So let me just introduce myself, as already Sundaram gave amazing introduction of both of us. But my name is Santhosh Yadav, and I'm an NGD for Angular, and I also write blog posts for indepth.dev. So you can go ahead and check few amazing articles from some amazing writers, as well as if you want to be part of it as well, just let me know. Share your article, and I'll make sure that I take it to the team, and so you can be part of that indepth.dev team as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Little bit about NgRx, its history. So NgRx was released in 2017. So if you remember, in 2017 when Angular 4 got released, and now it has like 5k star on GitHub, more than 5k star. I think I took this data a few months ago. It was created by the amazing Rob Wormold, who is the brain behind Angular Elements as well. And now Rob Wormold doesn't maintain this package anymore, so it's maintained by the community. Mike Ryan and Brandon Roberts are the maintainers of this project, and it's supported by, of course, more than 200 amazing developers out there, and you can be part of it as well. I would say the NgRx team is the amazing team. In case you want to start your open source contribution, go ahead, and there are multiple issues, and team is really good. They will help you with your contributions as well. Core team members include Tim, Alex, and Wesley Greens. So you can also reach out to them on Twitter if you are on Twitter. So just to give you an idea about what NgRx is. So it's a state management framework. Don't think about it as a library. It's not a library. It contains multiple libraries. So it's a framework for Angular for building state what you can say reactive application, and it's based on the Redux pattern. So not everything, as I said, it's a framework, right? So if I talk about NgRx store, which is actually based on a Redux pattern, and it is highly what you can say it was taken from the whole concept was taken from Redux, and then NgRx store was built, and now it contains multiple libraries. As I said already, it has multiple libraries for managing state, and it promotes the use of functional programming when building reactive applications. So if you are trying to build a reactive application, I would say NgRx is with state management. I would say just go ahead and use NgRx, and especially for enterprises where we have a lot of data flying around in entire application. So I would suggest go ahead and just check it out, how NgRx works, and if it's the right tool for you. Why state management is important, right? So you can see this monkey who is just wondering what's going on. So most of the time our users think about our applications in similar way. Let's say if I have multiple pages, and if I move around my pages, it takes a lot of time. Or let's say we are not managing state and some data is lost. So what happens? Our user will be like confused, what's going on, why I have to go through this, right? So it should be managed. If I am moving around the multiple pages, my data should be available. If I have added something to cart, just to give an example, and I go back, search for a few products and come back, and just to see that my card data is gone, what the user impression would be, he'll be like, okay, this is the application which I don't want to use. So it's really powerful. As I said, multiple packages. These are multiple packages which we have. The first one is store, so which is state management, what you can say, RxJS powered state management for Angular, and it is inspired by Redux. Then we have effects. So to understand the effect, it's like if you have any API call, so it mentions side effect model for NgRx store. But let me just try to simplify it for you. So in case you have any side effects, it means you have some API call which may or may not return the data. In that case, we should go ahead and use effects. We'll discuss about store and where actually where it comes into the picture, the side effects part. But just to understand, you have to actually go ahead and just say, okay, I have an API call, so I have to use effects. Router store, it actually binds your Angular router with NgRx store, so you can refer the data which is available in your router state in your NgRx store. That's possible. Entity is another, you can say, the wrapper on top of NgRx store. So in case you have a lot of entities defined, right, in your application, for example, I have an employee, I have department, I have products. What you can do is, rather than going ahead and implementing NgRx store, you can use entity. Entity gives you a lot of utility functions. So if I want to add one record, I can call just add one, set one. There are multiple methods like that which is available. I would say if you are interested, just go ahead and refer the docs, or there was a really good talk at NG India by one of the speaker. I actually don't remember his name, but there was a talk at NG India, and it was really good talk about the Angular entity. Then data, NgRx data was actually created by Ward Bell and John Papa. And last year, it was actually adopted as a package inside NgRx. So NgRx data, what it does is, you can just see the data. So if anything related to data which is coming from your backend, if you have a lot of API calls inside your application, what you can do is, to simplify them, you can just use NgRx data, which is again a wrapper on top of store and effects. Then we have store dev tools. Every application needs to be debugged. If you are not able to debug an application, the tool which you are using is not the correct tool for you. So this is where store dev tools comes into the picture, where you can actually debug how your state is being changed, or how over the time how your data or your state got changed. For example, I logged in. After logged in, where I went to the home dashboard maybe. If I went to place an order, so everything is actually logged when you see the store dev tools, right? So we most probably will also see the store dev tools in action. So let's talk about NgRx store in more detail. So as I said, it's a RxJS powered management library for Angular application. Before you can go ahead and use NgRx store, there is one most important thing which you have to remember. State is single immutable data structure. So what do we mean by that? In your entire application, you can have only one single state. It's not like you can have multiple states defined for your application. It's not allowed. So consider it like this. So you have an application and you have one database for that application. So now this state is actually your database on your front end, which is available, where you can go ahead and save multiple data. But whenever you're trying to save the data, your data is immutable. What do you mean by immutable? So I will see that soon. But before we next thing which we have to understand is, we can also use on push change detection strategy when you are using NgRx store. I'm sure if you are coming to Angular, you may have heard about on push change detection strategy, which is used to actually enhance the performance of your application, so your change direction doesn't run continuously. So NgRx lets us do that. There are three core concepts of NgRx store: action, reducers, selectors, and how we can let's go ahead and see that next. And in case you want to install NgRx store into your application, you just have to do ng-add NgRx store. So first thing, mutation. So we'll talk about how to how immutability works in your JavaScript and how it's related here. So let's say this is a product interface, right? So I have an product interface with ID, name, and price, and then I have defined few values. If I try to modify the property directly, which you can see on here, where I'm saying new product dot name equals to another value. So I'm mutating the state. In immutability, what you do is, rather than changing the data directly, you create a new object. So how we can do that? Of course, spread operator is one of the normal use case which people prefer. So what you can do is you can just say new product equals to then 3 dots, which is spread operator, and then I'm changing the name value and creating a new object. So this is how immutability works. Next, as I said, there are 3 core concepts. Let's go back to this slide. So 3 core concept: action, reducers, selectors, and this is what we are going to discuss about in this diagram. So if you see, the most important part of your application is, of course, your component, right? So without component, nothing will happen. So what happens? A component will be always responsible for raising an action. For example, I want to get the product information. That's an action. So what I will do is I will create an action which says, okay, go ahead and get the product information. Now, product information can be available on your API or can be available on in your NgRx store. So if I don't have any API interaction, what I can do is your action will go to reducer. It will check, do I have this data? If it is available, it will push it into store. And to get the data out of store, we will use selector. So what's the selector? We'll discuss soon. But in case the data is not available in your store, I can just go ahead and go to effects, which is my API call, fetch the data from service and return it to reducer. So it will we will call another action which will go ahead and give this data to your reducer. We'll see the entire thing in action. I'll just show you a demo as well. But let's understand the selector part, right? So if you don't have any questions here, let's move to selector part. Now, once I get the data from my API, there may be some data which is not required. For example, if I have defined a state where I have my user information, I have my product information, I have my cart information, do I need to select everything? The answer is, of course, no. What I will do with all this data? My current component only requires just give me the current products. So what I can do is I can write selectors. You can relate selectors to a SQL queries. So you remember writing SQL queries where you define, okay, from this table, give me this properties. That's something which is possible using selector. So you can go ahead and write selector and say, okay, this just give me this data. Don't give me other information because I don't need them into this particular component. So that's possible using selectors. So time to see the code. Okay, so what I've done is I have created a new application using Angular CLI. And let me just walk you through my application, what we have done. Okay, so this is a simple page, right? I mean, what I've done is I have some products on my page, and then I have given a filter. So what if I add this to cart, right? Come to cart page. You can see all this information is available. I'm adding this to state store and then fetching it from here. I'm not saving this into database. The reason being, I can just add this into cart right now, and then I can just place the order later on. So that's possible. Also, if you see, there is a filter to filter the product based on the pricing. So if I say 10,000 and let's say 25K, so you can see there is only one product which is available. But what in case I move to another page and come again? You can see my state is still managed because I'm using NgRx store to save all these filters, and I'm using selectors to query this data. So how to do it? How to actually go ahead and implement or add your NgRx store? So once you do add NgRx store, it will add one line of code which is similar to this store module for root, and then you are defining. Let me just increase the font size. I'm sure it won't be visible on live stream, so let me just do that. Yep. So you can see what the line here is. I'm defining a state for my entire application. So here I'm saying, okay, I'm using a team, which is my another state, and I'm passing a reducer function. So we'll see that in action soon. And similarly for effects, I have added this, but let's see that later on. You can also define your states for your features. For example, this product is my another feature. So what I have done is I have defined my state here, but I'm not using for root. So if you remember for root and for child from Angular routing, the same concept is applied here. So for my childs, it will be for feature. So I'm saying, okay, this is the product state of my application, and this is the another reducer, which we'll talk about what's reducer are. So let's move into this application where I have defined few states. So generally, there are multiple ways you can structure your application. In case I'm using NgRx, or I've seen this approach being followed by most of the people, we create a new folder called state. And then we have our action file. So this is where we are defining our actions. So my actions are, for example, this is get product success. In case I get the successful products, I want to save the or get the product information, which will be of course array. In case I get any error, I would save, okay, just give me the error, which is I'm receiving from the API. So I can just let the user know that there was an error. Similarly, for filtering the product, I have another action which says get filter product, and I'm saving min and max. So the minimum price and maximum price. And for add to cart, again, I have another action called add product to cart, and I'm taking the product which is available, and then I'm just pushing it to store. But how to create your actions, right? So Angular 8 onwards, the NgRx team created something known as creator function. So the advantage of creator function is it's a type safe. Earlier syntax was not type safe. So here we have create action as a function which takes first parameter where you will define the action which is string, and then after that you can see there are few actions where I have passed the values as well, or parameters as well. So we call them as props, and then I can pass multiple. So if I want to pass something else, for example ID, I can do that here. So ID with this type of number, right? So this is possible. You can pass multiple parameters here. Once you have written your action, the next thing which you have to decide is who will handle this action. So there are two ways, right? I said it can go to reducer or it can go to your effects and then come back to reducer. So let's see the happy flow. I'll open the reducer. We talked about a slice, right? We talked about data which will be saved in store. So the most difficult part which I have found is to actually define what are the different information which I need to store in my state. The reason being, we have to actually create an interface. So it's not like you will be adding everything which is available in your store, right? That's not possible, or that's not the use case anyways. So what you can do is you can just decide, okay, I need to use maybe products information. Is filter required to be saved in my store? If it is not, just don't do that. If error needs to be saved, of course, most of the time, yes. If my cart information needs to be saved in your store, so that's up to you, but you have to define an interface here. And once it's done, the next thing which you do is you define the initial state. What will be the default state for your store? So in case just a new user comes into your page, what will be the data? What will be the data which will be served? So this is your initial state, which of course is the same interface. And then I'm defining, okay, products will be null, price filter will be 0, 0, error, won't be any error, cart will be again empty. Then I'm defining this reducer. So the magic happens here, right? So here I'm saying, okay, I'm using another creator function, which is available after Angular 8 again, which is type safe. So here I'm saying, okay, create reducer function where the first parameter is initial state. And then this on function is again imported by NgRx store. So you can see I'm importing it from NgRx store, and on functions are used to handle the actions which are raised. So you can see I have something known as product load success. For in case a product is loaded successfully, what should happen? How your state should change. So I'm taking two parameters, state and properties. So state is your previous state. So what was the data available before product load success got called? And then I'm modifying the two values or two properties from this particular state, where I'm saying this products is nothing but the props dot products. You can also simplify this For example, here I'm saying products, right? So you can use curly brackets and directly access products. I don't want to access everything, and then use products here. So in case I have multiple parameters, I can just say ID. I have third parameter, whatever, I can just access it. So I prefer using this syntax rather than this syntax. I'm just giving it. I just wanted to simplify it, so that's why I use properties. So, but it's not required. So generally, I try to break it up and try to access the variable which I have defined here. So on functions to handle all the actions, or to catch all the actions which is raised by your application. And remember, there are once you create your reducer, let me just minimize this. Okay, so we are handling 4 actions here: product, load success, failure, filter product, and add to cart. In Angular 8, it's not, this line is not required in Angular 9. So in Angular 8, there was a problem that if I try to export this product reducer directly, it throws an exception while AOT. Yeah. So at AOT, it throws an exception. But this issue is resolved by IV. So you don't have to do it anymore. So you can just remove or comment this line. I will share this code with you. You can just go ahead and play around it. It's not required anymore in case your IV is enabled and Angular or you are using Angular 9 where IV is by default, right? So, but I will keep it right now because otherwise my application will fail. Okay, so once your reducer is done, I'll go to, I've created few selectors as well. So just to select the data, right? So you can see the first thing which you have to do is you have to create a feature selector. So it's like I'm saying, okay, this is the table from where I will be taking the data. So I'm saying, okay, this create feature selector, again a creator function available, which will take product state, and this is the name of my state. So if you remember, if you trying to figure out where this was used, I can just go ahead and open the product module. This should match. So this value here for feature in product and the one which you will be using to define your feature selector should match. So what a few of the community members suggest is create it as a constant. So you don't have to worry about this value in case it is being used at multiple places, or if you change this value. So prefer using constant above the string values. Then here I'm saying, okay, I want to select all the products from my product state. So here I'm saying, okay, get product feature selector, the create selector function, and again another selector, a creator function. So this will let you actually write your queries. Now we have started writing our queries now. So here I'm saying create selector, and the first parameter which I'm passing is just my feature state or my feature feature selector. And then I'm saying from this state, in case I have my filters applied, so I'm just filtering out all the products and returning it. In case there is no filter applied, just go ahead and give me the entire products. That's it. This is what we are doing here. Again, I have written another get filter products in case I just want the filter products. And the third one, this one is to get cards. So if you remember, I have shown you a screen where we had some cart information. So this is also to get only the cart information. I'm not taking entire data and then filtering out. No, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, okay, just give me the cart state from my entire state of product. Similarly, I'm taking the filters as well because I want to show the filters in case user comes back to my screen. So I'm using create selector, passing the product feature selector, and then I'm saying just give me the price filter, and then I will use it. So this was my reducer, which will be responsible for handling all the actions and modifying my state. Selectors can be written in a different file. Remember that. You can go ahead and write it in a different file. That's absolutely fine. You don't have to follow this approach. I have done it because, of course, I can just get all the information to show you in a single file. So let me just show you how the actions are dispatched. So I'll go to product component.ts. Here you can see I have injected my product state here. So product state is the same interface which we just referred. and this store is actually coming from NgRx store. So I'm saying, okay, this store of type this, and in case I want to access it anywhere, so let's say this one, right? So I needed the product information or product list as we discussed. So I'm saying this dot store dot pipe and then select this particular selector. So this is the syntax to get the information out of your store. Similarly, you can see here also I have selected the filters, and then I'm applying these filters on my min and max price form, which is available here. So here, this is where I have defined my form, and then I'm just adding, or you can say saving or taking all the values out of my store and adding it to or appending it to my form controls, min price and max price. To dispatch an action, we use this syntax. So we'll say this dot store and then dot dispatch method and then your action name. So product load is an action name. Right now it goes to my effect because I'm trying to get my product information from a database. I have just simulated it using a service. It's not really an API call, just simulated using a service. So this is how you will dispatch it. Similarly, for filter products, you can see I have raised an action where I'm dispatching the filter product now, but with two values. I said min and max. So this is how you can dispatch in case your action has parameter. For add cart, you can see I'm adding to cart with the product information where it's based on the button which I click. And if I go to the product cart, here also I'm just dispatching, or sorry, I don't have to dispatch because I just want to get the information, so which is available in store. So what I'm doing is I'm just going ahead and taking the information out of store. I don't have to dispatch again. Why should I? Because I don't want to change any state. I just want to refer the existing state. Now let's go ahead and talk about this this effects. So once you create effects, you have to register them as well. So what you do is you use effects module. Of course, there can be for root and for feature. Here I'm this is my feature state. So I'm saying for feature, and then it's an array. And in array, you can go ahead and write multiple effects. So it doesn't have to be single effect. You can, of course, for example, you have a very big feature which has multiple what you can say multiple subdomains, and you want to go ahead and write the state for each particular feature. So you can go ahead and write multiple effects to get, for example, product information. If I want to write something for cart, getting cart information, so I can write cart effect, because cart can have some functionality on top of it, right? So adding cart or deleting something from cart. So that's up to you how many features you want to create. Now let's go ahead and open the effects. So you can see now we have a create effect creator function which is available here, and of course everything returns an observable. So we'll talk about it as well. So here in create effect, what I've done is I have used the action, and then I'm using off type function, and then I'm saying whenever a product load action is raised, go ahead and trigger this particular code. You can go ahead and add multiple in case you want to. So you can just say off type and another action, right? So that's possible. So you can merge multiple actions here. And we are saying I'm using merge map just to get all the information and merge into a single map, merge into single value and a single stream, which is available here. And here I'm saying get products. So get products is my method, which is, you can see it just does nothing, just returns a static value of product list as observable. So I'm using off function of RxJS to return it as a stream. That's it. Then I'm using pipe operator, and then I'm using map operator because I just wanted to raise another action to add this values, the products list, into my store. So what I've done is I have used map operator. I'm getting the product list, which is the output of this get products. So if you're wondering from where this product list came, this is just a parameter to refer the output being given by this get products. And then after getting this product list, I'm raising this action, which is product load success, which goes to your, if you're saying reducer, yes, reducer, it goes to your reducer, and yep, here. So it goes to your reducer, and from there I'm getting all the products and adding into my state. So this is what we are doing here. So we are saying, okay, this products variable will have the product list which is given to me by this particular service. In case there is any exception, I'm using catch error, and then I'm raising another method to say, okay, there was a product load failure. So give me the error information, so I can just go ahead and call product load failure and just disable or remove everything from my products and just save the error information, whatever error string is available. And this is it. This is how it's done. So now you have everything available on your page. If I click on cart, it actually goes to it dispatches an action to save your cart information, and you can get it here. But how to visualize it? This is where the store DevTools comes into the picture. So let's go ahead and see your store DevTools. I'll refresh it again. So we'll start from the default state. So let's go ahead and inspect. And I'll go to Redux. So remember, you have to when you are using store DevTools, you have to go ahead and install the Redux DevTools, which is available on Google Chrome. So let me just increase the font size. Okay. So you can see there are multiple actions already dispatched. This is something not dispatched by us. This is internally done by NgRx. So we have store init effects in it. It is saying, okay, these are the things which are being initialized right now. And this is again internally from NgRx. So you can see the state information right now. It doesn't contain any information. So I have two states, team and product, and both contain no information right now. Then get products action was dispatched from my product screen. So you can see now get product was called. So you can see the action which is raised. This is the state after your action is raised. Yeah. And then get product success. So you can see your action, get product success, and what was the product's value. So you can see 4 products available here. And if you see the state, now at this point, my products contain some value. And price filter contains, of course, 00 because I don't have any price filters applied. If I add something to cart, so you can see add product to cart function was, or action was dispatched. So at this point, my cart information contains some data. If I go to cart, of course, there is no action raised because we didn't do, we are actually just getting or fetching the information from my store. So there is no action raised. We are just referring to this value, which is already available in state. And similarly for price, so if I click on filter, you can see there is an get filtered product action which was raised. You can see the action. Okay, this was the type and this was the value. This was the value min and max, and this is my state right now. So you can see min and max is actually saved into your store, and whenever I come back, these values are actually taken from my store. You can see there are just few actions which are dispatched. Get products, but min and max values. So you can see I have already saved this in our store, and then I had written a query, if you remember, not the query, but the code to filter out the products which falls into this particular values, which is available here. So this code where I'm filtering the products, so this is responsible for giving me only filtered products. So this is minimum thing which you have to learn about NgRx. So you should be aware of NgRx store, NgRx effect, how to debug it. That's very important. And of course, there is one more functionality which I wanted to show you. I can just go to this point, and then I can just play. Click on play button, and it will show you, okay, what are the different actions which were dispatched and how your application got changed. Very useful in case you want to see how the values are being updated. Consider it as a large enterprise application. You don't even don't want to actually dig into project because the code base is really huge. And the good thing is you have NgRx. So what you can do is you can just go to any point and then see, okay, let me just click here and just click on play button and see what happens when I performed all these actions, right? So you can just click and see, okay, everything is modified correctly, how your state being changed. So everything is available into your store. DevTools, amazing thing to debug your application. So this is it about store DevTools. I don't have anything else. This is the diagram again, if you are able to relate it. So what we did is we dispatched some actions. So let's summarize it, right? So we said, okay, we dispatched some action from component. It went to action. In case data is available in store, I went to reducer, and in case it is not, I just went to update the data in my store, or I can just go ahead and use selector to retrieve some data from my store and give it to component. In case I have an API call, I will always go ahead and call effects, and effects which can communicate to services, and it will give me the data back. So this is it. DevTools, so we already spoke about it. And these are few references in case you want to start with NgRx. NgRx.io, of course, the official documentation is really good. If you think there is any problem, feel free to raise a PR, and a team will take care of it. You can also refer indep.dev, where a lot of experts have been sharing their knowledge with tag called NgRx. There is a nice starter project which is created by Thomas. So you can also refer this Thomas Trojan, and it's known as Angular NgRx Material Starter. And of course, while creating these slides, I got help from these two amazing guys from the NgRx core team, Wesley Grimes and Tim. So if you want to follow them on Twitter, just go ahead and do that. They are really amazing, nice guys. In case you have any question, you can just send them a tweet, and I have always received a response from them. And thanks a lot. Okay, so my Twitter handle is not this, but the one which was shared on social media. So I have changed my Twitter handle, but in my email ID remains same. In case you want to reach out to me, just go ahead and drop a mail. I would try to get some time and try to reply to your mail. So this is it. This is thank you, ng-Kerala team, to have me here and give me the opportunity to present my talk. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so thanks, Santosh. So it was very informative actually. So I think we shall wait for the questions. Till now there weren't any questions in the comments, so we shall wait
Ah,
for a couple of minutes if there are any questions, and then we move on to the next session.
sure.
Yeah. Uh, okay. So Michael said, "Thanks for your session."
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a comment from Baljit Singh. So can you talk about NGRX entity and NGRX data?
Yes. Baljit, I have never explored NGRX entity and data, but I would suggest there was a talk from 1 second. Jesse. So there was a talk from Jesse at NG India. Who explained NGRX entity really well. I'm not sure that talk is available on YouTube, but I would try to find out some really good contents on NGRX entity and data, because I've seen this question a lot. Whenever I speak about NGRX, everyone comes with the same question: can we just talk about NGRX entity and data? The answer is I've never explored it in detail, but I will share some contents on NGRX entity and data with you. So we are connected on social media, so I will do that.
Okay. Yeah, and as Siddharth mentioned, it was a great session.
Thanks Sid for joining.
And Harsh Agarwal. Yeah, he also mentioned thanks, Santosh.
Thanks.
Sajitran mentioned thank you, Santosh, and he also
Thank you.
mentioned
Thank.
in the comments that you are the ambassador of OnePlus.
Okay. I have been using OnePlus devices from 2012, so you can call me ambassador. So
Okay. Yeah, and do they mention thanks for the session, Santosh? It's a great starter session for someone like me who's new to NgRx.
yeah, actually, I just wanted to keep it for like getting started, so everyone can understand, right?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a question from Guru Raj. So when to use NgRx store?
Okay, so yeah, let me just share my screen. I think.
Yeah.
So on official documentation, if you see, I think they have mentioned. Just a second. I think it was. Is it removed? We will key concepts introduction. Yeah. So just to answer your question, this is a really great explanation on the official website. I'm sure you can always refer to NGRX or docs. So they have given a reason. So when should I use NGRX state management? They have given this principle as name called Shari principle. So if your application needs everything which is available in Shari principle, you should be using NGRX state management. So you can of course go ahead and explore it in more detail. I'll just share the link.
Yeah, you can just do it in the comments, I guess. And yeah, so I think we got another question from Baljit Singh. So when should we add
Yeah,
NgRx to a project?
yeah.
I
I
mean,
think
depending upon the complexity of the project.
I think this is the same answer. So Baljit, in case depending upon the size of the project, so so many people do have their own opinion, right? So if your application is very small or your application is an enterprise level application, then you should use NGRX. But I prefer I just like to answer it in this way, like, do you know when your application will grow? The answer is no, right? So first sprint your application was really small, you decided not to use NGRX. After three four sprints, you actually saw that your application is actually growing. Now you are into a situation where you are not able to handle the state properly. So then you try to go ahead and implement NGRX store, which becomes really difficult. Let me tell you, in case you are trying to use NGRX or insert or just add NGRX store into an existing application, it requires a lot of refactoring. So do it from the start, do it from the day one. Don't wait until your application expands and it's out of control and no one knows what to do now.
Yeah, and he mentioned, yeah, that answers my question.
Yeah. Thanks, Valjit.
Yeah, I think we got another question from Guru Raj. So can we share between share state between different features?
Yeah, 1 second. So to answer your question, let me just show you the application again, right? So if you see the state here, can you see I have access to even though I'm into product screen, I have access to team as well as product state also. You just have to make sure that okay, this particular feature should is available, then you can go ahead and do that. If you are sure that okay, these two features, different features, can share the information, yes, that's possible. You can, because everything is part of a single store. When I started my talk, I said there can be only single store, single database, and this is what it refers to. So of course you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. Okay, so we got a question from Sajitran. So, what is your recommendation to preserve the state even on page reload? I know local storage would work. So, is there any other alternative?
I've never seen. I mean, this is something which has been discussed a lot in the NgRx community as well. There is there is one library also which uses local storage to save the information, but of course there is no clear answer. If you prefer saving your database data into your local storage, you can go ahead and do that, but not every data. I would prefer, I mean, retrieving the latest data from my store rather than actually dumping it into my local storage and then taking it out of local storage. Local storage is always not a good practice, right? Everyone knows about it. So the thing is, there is no alternative. If you have to use something or save into local storage, of course you have to use local storage. There was a library which we also use, not just to give you an idea, that we also save some information in local storage. For example, the country from where user actually logged in. So
Okay, so Guru Raj says he got your explanation. And
thank
okay,
you,
so we
thank you,
got a
Lula.
question from Akhil Raj. So he's saying, are
Yeah.
there any other competitive state management framework like NgRx and Angular?
Yes, there are few. Just really sorry for this noise. I think that there is some work going on. So there are libraries like NgXS and Akita. So I have never explored it because I have been using NgRx from a year now, and I'm really comfortable with and it serves my purpose. But in case you want to explore, NgXS and Akita is another library. Otherwise, if you have very small application, I think you can go ahead and use subject or behavior subject. That serves the purpose. So the
Yeah.
first thing which you have to decide is, do I need it? How about storing the state on an
Sit down.
API?
Yeah.
So of course, Siddharth, you can go ahead and do that. So whenever you are updating some information, you have to dispatch an action. Go and update your database, right? And whenever you want to just retrieve the information, go ahead and dump it in store and use it. For example, cart, the example which I gave, which is really relates to your question, is cart, right? I would have actually dumped all this information into an, or given this information to an API which saves my cart information in my backend, and whenever go to cart information, I will dispatch another action which will go ahead and take the cart data from my backend using an effect and then load it. That's also possible. It's up to you how you are actually uh, trying to, or how you are actually designing your state, right?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, the same question, I guess. Yeah.
No, no. Have you looked into any other NGX? Yeah, I think you. I have
Yeah.
personally. I have never used any other NGX alternatives. I have used subject and behavior subject, is also serves the purpose for smaller application. But if you're talking about any other framework libraries, for example, NgXS or Akita, no. There are few guys who are really active into NgXS and Akita. Of course, on Twitter you can follow them, and you can ask them question in case you have, because of course they have seen some advantages using ngxs and akita in their own application. So of course you can connect with them and see why they preferred ngxs or akita. I mean, for akita you can always go to ask question to his creator. So that's also possible, right? So
Okay. So Siddharth, no, I mean for the reload scenario. Um, So basically, Siddharth
no, I
has
mean,
two questions.
Okay. So, okay, he was just, I think, referring to the question from Saji. Of course, I mean, for reload scenarios, that's what I said, right? The best way is to always fetch the data from API. So, of course, go ahead and take the current information which is available from your from your effects. So, dispatch an action, take it from your effects. But Saji was referring to, in case I want to just save it in local storage and retrieve it. So that was his question. So
So we got
Okay.
another question from Pankaj saying,
Mhm.
what is the best way to debug NGRX?
Uh, NgRx DevTools. One answer for your all the debugging problems.
Okay. Okay, so let's wait for a few more minutes if there are any questions, Santosh.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions, Santosh. So thanks for your session, Santosh. So if guys, so if you have any doubts, you can Santosh mentioned you can go to ngrx.io docs. If you have any doubts, you can go there, or else you can also use this handle. If you have any doubts, you can just ping him. You can tag Santosh and you can ask any questions in Twitter. I think yeah, he'll be reply as soon as possible.
Yeah, sure.
Uh, yeah. So the next session, guys. So we have Pankaj. So Pankaj, he'll be talking about Angular forms. So we'll see what he has got. Yes, Pankaj, over to you.
Yes, I just shared my screen.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, so yeah, Santosh, it was nice session. Thank you. So let me introduce myself before I begin. So I'm Pankaj Parkar. I'm working as a senior software engineer here in Deskera. Also, I'm MVP and GD. So you can follow me if you want to on this various platform by handle Pankaj Parkar. So basically, today I'm going to speak about Angular forms, and this will be kind of basic, the session for basic and intermediate guys. And this is the content. We will go over how to create a simple form. We will understand what are the states that are there in Angular form. Then we will move on to the template driven and model driven form, and we'll see each feature one by one, like creating validation, adding validation, create nested form, dynamic forms, and so on. So throughout the session, I will be, doing live coding. So be with me. So let me begin. So this is the starter project that I have created, and let me show you how it looks like. So I already ran a ng serve command. So you can see that this is the application, and it looks something like this, which has 4 pages. So as our agenda is, so I will move on to the first page, which is login page. So to begin with, I just wanted to make sure like you understand the states of form. Like form has various state in general. So what are they and how we can determine them? So generally, whenever you see a form, the form is consist of fields, form fields. Like it could be input field, text area, select box, check box, and there will be one button that can helps us to submit a data to the server, send the data to the server. Correct. So what are the states that are there on the form? So each input field is represent like that represent state, like is it valid or invalid. So if you look at this form at the on the initial load, so whole form is called as a pristine. So pristine meaning, and how I determine that is pristine or not. So if you look at the form and just forget about the Angular code. just look at the class. So do you see a pristine class? So the pristine is a state where the form got loaded and form data got populated, but user haven't touched any of the field. Okay, so the pristine state says that form is fresh. So once you touch any of the field, you will see that there is one more class that got added onto your form, which is on your field, actually, basically the field that you have touched. So let me check that field. So field is ng touch, and basically whenever you touch the form field, the form state become for that particular field becomes dirty. So the form that particular field becomes dirty, that's why the form will become dirty. And same way, there are two more states. So whenever you are touching to any field, that field will be untouched, and as soon as you touch the field, it will be touched. So you can see that there is a touch class because we have touched that field. But if you look at the other field, which is password, you will see that that field is untouched. So basically what we have seen is there are basically 6 states. First one is pristine on fresh load, then touched, untouched, dirty when you touch any field, and the last one are valid and invalid. So by collating everything, it determines whether the form is valid or not. In this case, form is invalid even though on initial load, because form have a first email and password as in required field, and that's why it became you know invalid form, because the state is not completed. I mean, it is invalid basically. So let's move on to the next part. I hope you have understand the basics of form states. So throughout the session, we are going to create this edit form. So this is simple HTML form. What we have is like we have email, address, city, zip, skills, and 2 text boxes and the checkbox. And this is simple form. We are going to convert this form firstly into template driven form. So basically Angular have 2 types of form. The first one is template driven, where you will go with the declarative approaches, and the other one is model driven, where you will be mostly writing the imperative code inside your model. So initially we will begin with the declarative form, and we'll create same page using not declarative form, the template driven form, and later on we will migrate the same form or create the same form with the template, the reactive forms. Okay, so let me open the code. So basically this application has 4 routes, and 4 routes has each page. So first of all, we will be starting with the template driven form. So I'm going to use this route for template driven, which is user profile template. So for the same, I have created one template, one component, and inside the component there is nothing. Okay, but on HTML side, if you can see, this is simple HTML. Now we are going to convert this HTML to Angular form, which is template driven. So how to do that? So to do that, what I'm going to do first thing is I'm going to use a directive called as ng-model. What is ng-model directive? Ng-model directive is the directive who helps us to bind a data, two-way bind a data. So over here, I'm just going to say email. Then for same way, I'm going to put on address here. Let's see what happens on the UI. Anything is not working. Everything is fine. So so this is. Do you think this is enough? Like just to mention a ng-model onto the page. So let's see what happens on the browser. So it says like if you are using ng-model, you have to make sure that it should at least have a name attribute. Okay, and this is the one of the property of form. If you have a form field and if it doesn't have a name attribute, it doesn't consider it as a form member. So you must mention a name attribute on top of it. So just go ahead and mention a name attribute on the input field of email. So I'm going to say name email, and same way for this is what, this is address. Okay, so I'm going to add address as well, or address as well. Okay, and let's see what happens. Okay, no errors as such. Okay, I can interact with the form. So let's see if I can see the form value is getting updated or not. I'm going to print an email and what other variable is email and the address variable, and just see if this variables are, this ng models are getting updated or not. The model variables are getting updated or not. Okay, so this is happening, and same with the other one is happening. Okay, that's cool. So similar way we can convert all the form fields into the form, like just by saying I can say city to this, and same way for this guy as well, which is zip. Okay, so that's okay, but when we interact with, I mean, when we create an enterprise level application, we don't really do something like this. Like, every time we will be having a separate fields. Like over here, if I'm going to, I want to see these values, then I have to separately get them, even in model as well. So if you look at this, then only it will print. Let it get refreshed. So okay, but then we want something better. Maybe see, this profile page is thoroughly representing the profile of a user. So ideally, it should be a profile object that will be thrown to the server and save it into the database. So how can we do that? Do this better in better way. So for that, there is a directive called as ng form. Okay. So what you can do is you can extract that ng form directive inside a variable called as form. So this is a template variable which will hold the value of ng form. And ng form is what it basically does is it will throughout scan the form elements and it will pick the ng models and its values. Okay. And what we can do is we can just use this form variable to see what's happening inside that. So I can say value and then I will just say JSON to print the value in JSON format. So let's see what happens. So as soon as I type in any value, even though I'm separate, I defined email, address, city, model separately, Angular ng form directive had combined that into a single object. And thereafter, what will happen is on click of submit button, this one, I hope the font should be okay.
Yes, Pankaj. So that's what I came to say.
Okay.
Like you can zoom in a little bit.
Okay. This is better?
Yeah, this is better.
Okay. Cool. Let me minimize this. So where we are, so what we did is we just take an reference of ng form directive and put it inside the form variable, and then we said form.value is equal to just printed as in JSON, and we saw that it combined all the values. So that's cool. Now we want on submit button click. Basically what we do is we edit the form and then we send it to the server. For that we need a button to do that action. So to do that, we will be having a button that will be of type submit, and on submit of that, Angular will internally, hijack submit event and just fire a ng submit event, and that event will help us to do submit. So over here, we will just say form.value. So what will happen is all the form object that we have got here will be sent into your class, your component basically, and component can take care of make an Ajax call, and Just we can just see values what are there. If they are passing correctly, so let's see. So far we haven't seen any validation yet. Just we are trying to see how binding works in Angular with forms. So I'm going to submit a form. On click of sign in button, it should fire. It should fire, but it did not. Did I save the file? No. I have saved the file, and let's see. On click of this sign in button, it will fire ng submit, which will trigger a submit action. Yeah, that's it. We got all the field value, and we can obviously send it to the server. But this is like just for learning purpose. How can we use template driven form and bind the values? But in general case, whenever there is a form, we can add, basically there are CRUD operations. So we can add entity and edit entity and update. So how to pre-populate the values which we are getting from the server directly? So for that, we have to little bit refactor this particular page. So generally having these separate models is not a good idea. So what should I do then? So do one thing. We can create one object called as profiles or something like that. And then inside the profile object, we can have these values. So what were the values? Email, address, zip, city. Suppose email is ABC, address. Then the next will be zip. City. Okay, so this is so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use. I will think that this is a real world application. There is a date on initial load. There will be no data, but after some time the data will be loaded and the form will automatically fill up. So at initial moment, I'm going to keep this object as in blank. Ideally, it doesn't. I should not do this, but just for demonstration purpose, I will be doing that. So I will write a set timeout action, set timeout method, and that will just put a delay of 5 seconds. Inside that, I will be setting this profile variable. Let's see what happens. So I did not do anything on the UI. So what we have to do right now on the UI is we have to change this value in such a way that everyone will be referring to the reference of profile object. So internally Angular will go ahead for ng model, it will evaluate this expression with respect to your component class, and it will pull the value from there, and you can see that this page got populated. Let me refresh it once again, and in 5 seconds it will be pre-populated. Nice. So let's move ahead a bit. So writing a profile, I think so. Repeating a profile again and again may not be a good idea once again. So can we optimize that too? So let me think. Yeah, we can try something. So yeah, I think we can use ng model group directive. So what that does is basically you can just mention ng model group directive and the name of your property, which is the the container of an object. For us, it is profile. And let me do this here. Okay. All is profile. Now let me add this. Okay. It should work now. So what we did is we just added a ng model group variable as profile. So what will happen is, we said there is a container of ng models which is profile, and whenever you are trying to evaluating any variable inside your ng model group, it should work. So yeah, we have to do some change, but let's see what happens. As soon as you do that, see what happened. It worked, but eventually it did not populated the value of email, address, zip, and city. Let me refresh once again. See, it worked, but it actually it got partially worked. So what should we do? So for doing that, let me do it this way. Suppose so basically what we said is, inside a form object, I will be having a profile object, and inside a profile object, I will be having this many properties. So suppose I can say maybe profile, and then inside that I will be mentioning a user object perhaps, and inside that user object I will be putting in all the value. So this way we can collate the um, different set of inputs inside a single form. So let me rename this to user. Basically now we said inside a form object there will be user object, and user will be uh, holding the members, like all these things which are inside it. And let's see what happens. Still it is not happening because I have to change this thing. Sorry. So this way what will happen is, you have to just shorten your um, when you say ng model group, inside it you have to just say ng model. Internally it automatically correlate and find the email variable. So let's see what happened on the UI. For email only it should be reflected. See, so same way we will be just removing. So this way you have just beautified your code, and you haven't repeated the profile word, just to navigation in it, and the code looks better. Okay, so this is what the simple form is. So let's add some validation into it. Validation like the field should be required. If it is number, then the number should have the minimum and maximum range. So how to do that? So as I said, this is a template driven form. Most of the things you will be doing on the declarative way. So declarative way, what I mean by that is, you will be writing most of the time the directives or something on the HTML side. So likewise over here you wrote ng model group. Same way for validation, I would be writing one more attribute that will be required. Same way for, suppose I want a required to appear, address should be a required field of your form. So same way for, suppose city, and let's see what happens on the UI. So everything is working fine. We have pre-populated the values. Let me comment that part so that we can see the other things which we are going to look at it now. So everything is working fine. So now we are going to look at the most valuable feature of Angular Forms API, which is validation. The way validation works in Angular Forms is great. I mean, even synchronous as well as asynchronous. So how to do that? We go here, and as we put something like required on each field, let's see. Do you know, like before I taught, like I told you, there is a way to see your form validity. So let's try to see what is the validity of form. So for that, what you can do is, you just have to look up for a variable on your form object, which can be dot valid and invalid basically. So dot valid will say if it is valid, then it will say the form is valid. So see, let's keep only valid. Let's not. Yeah. So if you can see that currently our form is valid, even though there are fields which are part of your form. Wait a minute, what happened? Actually, form, form. This is required. What if I try without? Oh, let me try without ng model group. Let's see what happens. Okay, because we have pre-populated value, that was the reason. So there is a cache issue. Let me refresh it. Still it is pre-populating the values from somewhere, not sure. Code is already saved. Let me check the code in console. What is the file name? User profile. User profile template, I believe. User profile template component.ts. Where is it? Component.ts. It is. So why, from where it is pre-populating the values? We haven't actually did that. Wait. Not sure. Actually, we commented this code, even though that's there, it is pre-populating all the values. No, wait. Not sure. Wait a minute. Let me see if I did anything wrong on the page. No, I don't see anything wrong on the page. This is okay. This is okay. Let me redo everything at the initial moment so that we can move on. I don't want to waste the time. Just say submit here with form. Okay. And just say here form dot valid. If it is valid, then it will say valid true, otherwise it won't. Name, send this one. Okay. Same, maybe, perhaps, what could be the issue? Am I missing something? Anyways, I will move on because actually I have only 45 minutes. I already have spent 15 minutes. So I want to show you the required validation. Let me see if it works on the field level. So let's try to get the hold of field. And we have removed it, correct? So let me put it back. My mistake. That's working. Okay. Form dot valid. So yeah, it's working. It was my mistake. I did not add the required field. So let's see how it works. So basically, when I say when I made any field as in required, the main form said field is invalid. But eventually, what had happened? Each member of a form is required, and they become invalid. That's why the form became invalid. So let's see how we can show error message below the field. So how to do that is in Angular, you can hold and reference of this particular field. Like how? Do you know we have taken reference of ng form over here? The same way we will be taking a reference of email over here like this. Ng form is directive, so same way ng model is a directive. We will be taking a hold of it like this. So get the ng model reference and put it inside the ng email controller variable. And we can use this email controller variable to show the validations. So how to show that validation? So to do that, I will be saying some class, or just do some styling where we will be saying color, mark this as a red, and what will be the error? Field is required. Okay, so we added the div, but what should be the condition when that div should be applicable? So we are going to use ng directive. Inside that, we are going to put in a condition that will say if email control will be, if we it have the errors, then if it is a, so let's do this thing. Just check what's there inside the error and just show that div. So instead of form field, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this two things for debugging, form.value, and same way I will be keeping this as in for debugging email errors. And since it is an object, I'm going to say JSON. So that will format it. So let's see what happens. So do you see on form level it is not, because on field level the error thing has been maintained. On form level also you can specify some errors, but if you specify then only it will appear. On field level you can see that there is an object which say required true validation is there. That means it is saying the form field is required, and this required integrity is not resolved. So that's why this had appeared. So what you can see is what we did is inside our code. Let me close this tab for to avoid confusion. Inside a code, what we wrote is we wrote this condition only. So we said if there is any error, show this required message. What if we have multiple error? Like suppose I have to restrict user to enter more than 10 characters. So I have added the max length on the input field. And if I do that, required error went away. But as soon as I reaches, oh, it is the max length of this thing. So let's use something else. Perhaps not max length, but something else like, oh, use min length. That will be good. So keep it 4 or 6. So a email should have only 6 characters. So if I look at this, even though I validated the required error, but we have one more error, which is min length error, and required length is 6. So that time also it appeared. So what happens is basically on field level error, it has a property like before we were having a required. So that time it had a required. Now we suffice the required integrity, then it throws a min length error. So what we can do is we can have a error specific to our message particular validators. So over here what you can do is you can just put this error as in appear to be when required, and the other error will appear whenever there is min length. So I just copied this and I said error.min length, and do this thing and do that thing. So min length should be 6, and let's see what appears on the UI. It should reflect. So I have to minimum add 6 character, and after that that error will went away. That's cool. So by this way we can handle the error situation, error handling, or not error handling, validation in template driven form. So what you would see is in template driven form, mostly we will be when we want to apply any validation, mostly we will be writing declarative code, and your HTML might become too long to read. So this is my opinion. That could be the reason the template driven form is best, but I don't use it generally. And the other reason is like if you want to test anything, you want to rely on mostly on the HTML side. If you are running any Jasmine Karma test, you have to actually perform things on your HTML itself. Okay, so we will come to that problem later on. Come to that point later on. So this is what the template driven form was. Let me see if I missed anything from the. Uh, okay, so let's see how we can do the nested form. I think we did it using the ng model group. So that was a nested. And dynamic form, I will see if I have a time, I will cover at the end. Now that was the template driven form. Now move on to the next form type, which is model driven. And it is also called as reactive forms because mostly the RxJS is involved. RxJS can play better in that situation. So I'm going to close these files and we'll move back to the application and we'll move to the next phase, which is user model driven form. And this is the other form, same replica of the initial form. We are going to convert this form into the model driven form. So before we were writing the declarative way, now we will be coding imperative way, meaning not most of the things will not be written on the HTML side. There will be some kind of directives that will be used, but the HTML will have a minimal changes. So let's see how we can do that. I'm going to open the user profile model page. This is HTML. Same HTML, email address, city, etc. And this is the component file. So to start with, I want to tell you one thing about the model-driven form, and I think I missed to mention while I was mentioning the template-driven form. To use the template-driven form, you must have mentioned forms module inside your main app module. Otherwise, because this forms module have the directives for ng model and all. Okay. So to use reactive forms, similarly, there is a module called as reactive forms module. Reactive forms module. So just import it from the forms package of Angular and use it. So now you are free to use the reactive forms module. So get back to the file, HTML file and the TS file. Let me close this one. There are few concepts in this when it comes to a reactive form. So before going into the depth, I will be covering that as we cover the states of form. So there are three things in reactive form or model driven form. So first one is model form control. Next one is form group, and the last one is form array. So form array is very simple to understand. Maybe it is an array that consists of different forms or some, I don't know, form group maybe. So we will come on to this at the last. So what is form control? So if you look at this form, there is a big form which is holding different members, input fields, or maybe select box. So each form field is can be called as form control in model driven form. Okay. So that is what the form control is. So let's look at what is form group. So form group is a minimal set or a set of form control or form fields that can represent a form state. So over here, email, address, city, zip is basically representing the edit profile form. So over here, this whole can be called as a form group. Okay, that is a form group. And form array. So the form array is very specific to some use cases. Where suppose over here, if you look at the bottom of the page, there is a skills section, and skills section will have multiple skills that user have, like C#. We have a 5 rating, and then maybe Angular. So what this hold is this hold the skills, like it can be multiple. There could be add button and you keep on adding the skills, correct? So for such kind of thing, you need a dynamic control. And on click of add button, the array should have one more value that will be representing the same set of control once again. Okay. So this kind of things can be achieved easily using the form array. So we will see that how to do form array as well in this way, in this particular session. Okay, so that was it. So let's write one thing. This is input field for just for a reference. So we are going to create a form from the model, which is component. The form group is collection of field, and form array is collection of form group or inputs or fields. Okay, let's create each of this. Like we have 1 2 3 4 5 6, I think 6 to 8 fields. So what we are going to do is to create a form model driven form. You have to create either form group or form control or form array. So what you can do is you can create form control and assign that to each field. That is possible. But again, you will have to again create a form group that will be holding to those all 6 to 7 fields. Okay. So I think the form creating a form group will be a better idea. So for doing that, you have to inject the dependency, which is going to be form group builder, form builder, sorry, not group. That dependency obviously come from the Angular forms. And before defining a form, you will be having an object called as profile form. As I said, you will be mostly writing a coding component only for model driven form. And now we will be creating our form object. So how to do that? I will be assigning something to the profile form variable, which is going to be this dot fb. I'm going to use a form builder to create. What should we create? Group. So create a group that will be an object because group have a multiple fields, and it will have a key and value pair or any pair. So let me come to that point as well. So we have address, then we have zip, I think, plus we have, what is it? Let me see. What is it? Address, zip, email, and then city. Email and city. Let's see what happens. So nothing will we will first do everything first, and then we'll see on the UI. So for as of now, we have only created profile form. Nothing will appear on the HTML because we haven't bounded anything on the HTML such that it will recognize that I have to render the HTML have to render a model driven form. So for doing that, earlier what we have used is we have used like this ng form and all. Over here we are going to use something else. That is same thing which we have created in the model. So I'm going to say there is a form group directive. You can use that, and we will say like as I say binding the square bracket. It will evaluate that value from the user profile model component, and it will see is there anything with the from group, and it will get it there. Okay. Now the next thing is you have to move on is now you said just say this is a container of your profile form. Now you want to say that this is an email field, then address, then city and zip. So for doing that, you have actually created a form control over here. Okay, that is how you do that. Actually I should have created in this way so that you can understand it better. So that was a short form of it. The long form is like this. There is no any benefit of it. They works in similar way. So basically you have created multiple form control. Now you want to use this form control on the page. So how to do that is you just have to say form control as similar as that of what you said here, name, and the name value will be email. Now you will say like, yeah, once I mentioned it with square bracket, and that time it evaluated the property value profile from the component. Now I am just saying form control name without any square bracket. Why? So basically we said like this is the container. The form group will take care of looking up that particular property if we just only say form control name with a value. So basically when you say like this with property binding, it will try to evaluate the email value with respect to your component. But when you say like this without square bracket, it will directly pass on the string value as an email, and it will pick this control, email control from here, and will render it. So I think so much talking. Let's look at the demo. Uh, I think this is the address, I believe. This one is city, and this one is zip. Move on to the page, and for debugging purpose, I will just print this whole thing on the page. Earlier we have ng form, now we have directly the form group, and they eventually they work in the same way in representation way, but the internal implementation is little bit, the way of implementation is little bit different. To say that, and let's see, we have all the fields: address, zip, email, city. And as soon as you do that, the two-way binding is happening. Okay. So what is the difference between template-driven form and model-driven form as of now? So when we were adding a template-driven form, we have ng form directive, okay, and also on each field we only mention, if we mention the ng model name, ng model, that time we got an error. The name attribute should be there so that it can be considered as in part of that field can be considered as in part of that thorough form. So over here, when you mention form control name, it take care of two-way binding as well as adding the name attribute onto the field, so that the form, I mean, they actually not add on the HTML, but it will consider that that is there, and I will take care of it. Okay. So that is it, and let's see. Yeah, everything is appearing, but we are going to come to form array a little bit later. But let's now look into the validations, I think. Yeah. So now you want to put a validation on each field. Earlier, what we did is we had kept something on the HTML attribute, HTML input element only, which was required attribute. Now you have to do play with your form controls only. So what you can do is, whenever you want to add any validators, if they are existing validators, you can use it from existing validators object forms, and there are basically few simple validators like max length, min length, null validator, pattern. So we want a required validator. So just keep that there and see what happens. And for debugging purpose, we will also put the state of a form. State will be same way, profile dot value dot not value value. And let's change. So initially it is false. So if you look at the field level, each field is invalid. That's why the form became invalid. So if you add values into it, it will eventually become true. Now let's look at how we can handle a validation in the model driven form. Not validation in terms of showing it on the user side, on the HTML side. So before, what we did was, I'm going to copy a little bit HTML from there so that I can save some time, and I'm going to put it down here. And over here, what we did earlier was like we took a reference of ng model and put it inside email ctrl variable like this, and just we used it. But over here, what you can do is there is some different way of doing that. So to do that, you can actually say like this. You have to get the particular field, which is what email. So you what you are saying is, you are saying the profile form. Please get email control from the form group. And now that email control is exactly equivalent to what we did with hash email ctrl. And now we will do the same thing. The way of accessing is little bit different. Like you over here, you are going specific. into each property and gathering the form, getting the form control, and then applying the validation. So same way that will appear for this guy. And we let me apply the min length validator as well inside this. So if you want to apply multiple validator inside an array, you can just specify one more validator. So over here, I will just say validators dot min length will be 10.6. And let me save this HTML and see what happens on the HTML side. So for now, it is required. As soon as I change things, oh, why it is not working? Am I missing something? It. Where did I kept it? On email, correct? Over here, did I put it on email? Yes, it is there. Min length. Let me see. Let me do more debugging. Let's just print the errors object of that email control. If there is any error, then it will show it. It is there, but somehow it is not appearing. What I wrote there, min length is equal to, okay. What I said here is min length. Oh, dot errors is missing. Sorry, my mistake. Yeah. So, so as such, whenever it comes to a validation, you will be adding more code into the model side. You will keep on increasing this validation array, or you can also create your own custom validator. We might see one how to add that in some time, but yeah. So if you look at this HTML, you will see that, yeah, I mean, Pankaj, you told us like template driven form add more declarative code and the template will become unreadable. So over here it is, this one is kind of, like little bit, why should I do this gate every time? Like I did this 3 times and I want to get rid of it. I don't want to repeat it. So for that, for such cases, I would say just use some kind of refactoring, which could be like this. Uh, Sorry, I did not copy it. Just say use the aliasing. Over here, I will say profile, not profile form, email CTRL. Same way what we did as in hash, email CTRL. And then we will be using, instead of using this multiple times, just use that reference. So that way you had refactored as well. And this looks little bit readable, not little bit, better than before. So for validation, you have to add a code onto your page. Otherwise, it won't work. I mean, otherwise there is no other option to do that. Anyways, like you can create directives as well, but yeah. So one more thing, what you can do is you can also have separate container for this. So that will be the other way of refactoring it. So far, yeah, we have seen creating using a validator inside the model driven form. So suppose in case you want to use your own validator, you want to create your own validator and use it. Like suppose that is very specific to your application maybe. So how to do that? So for doing that, what you can do is you can create your own validator. Like here, I want to create a validator. For that, you will be using compose method, and inside a compose method, you can mention a function. Sorry, this should be equal to, and that function will have a control. Yeah. Wait a minute, did I made any mistake? Okay, maybe it haven't returned anything, so that could be the reason. Okay, wait a minute. Let me do this way. Validator compose, I think it accepts an array. Am I correct? It is an array, and that array will have again one function. So let me define it separately, so that isn't very good to read. I will define the function here, which will be suppose custom validation, and that custom validation may look like this. And I'm going to use this custom validation in here. This custom validation. What is it? Okay, it needs an but bind this. Yeah. What happened with others? Am I missing any bracket? Yes. So this bracket should be closed. Let me move this down so that you can see it properly. Is there any extra bracket with compose? Then there should be one closing bracket for this. And yeah, that's it. Okay. Nice. So I use this custom validation function over here, and we will put a debugger in here. And what will happen is basically you have created your own function. That function is nothing but a custom validation, and you have provided that function to an array which is going to be compose. So compose can consist of multiple validators as well. So that's why there is array, and this array will accept a parameter which will be on whatever control you have applied. Like that will be address. So over here we will see the address. And try to just say console log whatever value you are getting. It will be nothing but control form control. Let's see what happens. So basically what happens is each time when you make any change into the field, this validator is going to fire. Suhas, how much time I have? I think
Yeah, you got 5 minutes, Pankaj.
okay, cool. So I will finish it off.
Yeah,
Uh, so
yeah,
let's
sure.
see how to do that. So I wrote this and I put a debugger here. So let's see what appears on the HTML side. So I'm going to make some change in the input field. Nothing is appearing. Let me see what had happened. Did I place it correctly? It is on address. What was I modifying? Email. Sorry. As soon as I'm making any changes, I am getting that value. That means our validator is getting fired. Now I haven't explained anything inside the validator. Why I return the null. So basically, validator can return multiple things. So let's look at the existing code first. So if you look at this field, you will see that this is a validator dot required written by Angular, and it is returning an object saying that required is an error and true is the object. Like required is true, meaning that field is required. Same way, if we not same way, if we just suffice that validation, everything is fine. So it returns null. So what I did basically is to make our field valid, we have returned a null from it. And if we want to make this field as an invalid, we will return an object. Okay. So let's do one thing. For address, we will manually say that like if address exceed suppose length of 10. I know I can use min length, but just to demonstrate, I will use this length more than 10. Then say like, yeah, that is invalid. So I will say address invalid 2. Or you can also mention one, your metadata, length 10 or something like that. But for now, I'm just keeping it simple true. And otherwise, it should be question. Otherwise, it will be null. Null meaning all is well. Okay. So let's see. So initially I'm seeing the required error. As soon as I move on, I see min length error. After 6 field, I will start seeing. Do you see any error? No. Let me see if our code is working fine or not. If length is there, length is greater than 10, then return this address invalid. Is not returning. Oh, sorry, that is address. I'm sorry. As soon as you do that, let me check this out. Yeah. As soon as I do any changes, you will see, oh, what is this? As soon as I do any changes, you will see that there must be an error. The validity of form must have become false, even though we have entered all the required field. So you can so why I returned, so what was the reason behind returning the object? So returning the object may tell you if you have more metadata, like in min length case, it was saying length is required more than 6. The same way you can have metadata, or you can at least use this object property to show error on the page like this over here. So we can also add one more guy and call as address invalid, and you can have your own validation on the page. So this way you can do this thing. Other way, like in most of the cases, we have a dynamic forms. So in dynamic form case, we want to add some validation, on based on some condition. If user check the checkbox, make that field required, otherwise don't. So this kind of things become very simple when it comes to model driven, because you will be managing that part in the your form component itself. So let me show that in 2 minutes, and then we will wrap up. So what I can do is, I think I have one checkbox. That checkbox is saying I agree, and let me add one form control to that. Form control name. What is it? What can it be? Agree, suppose. Okay. I'm going to add one control, otherwise it won't work. You have to add a control in it, like this. Agree. And let me do one thing for now. I will remove a valid. For now, I'm just going to remove the validator from city. Okay. I'm going to add one function which is going to be on agree. Click. And there will be value. Okay. So on actually it is going to be change event, and inside this what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the validator of a city field. So to do that, do you remember how we got an hold of a form control? So same way we are going to get an hold of that field using this dot profile form dot get the form field name, which is going to be city, and now we have a control over that particular field. And what we are going to do is, as soon as user click on this agree field, and if he haven't filled the city field any value, then the form validity will be false, meaning invalid. Otherwise, when if we enter the value inside the city field, it will become valid. So for doing that, you are going to call this function on the change event of input box. So for that, you are going to use change event. Okay, and directly get a value from here. I can suppose I can just say agree this dot profile form value, just wrap it, and when it is true, what you have to do is you have to add a validator. Okay, and when it is false, then you have to remove the validator. Correct. So to do that, what you can do is you got a hold of this field, so you're just going to say city the city control. So to get a TypeScript in a better action, you can just say this is a form control. So while doing that, you will get a IntelliSense. So ctctrl. On that, let's check is there any validator method exist. Okay, there are. So what are they? So there is a validation method which is called a set validator, and set validator accepts an array. So you can, the similar way how we provided an array over here, you know. So same way what we can do is we can just say validators dot require, and that's it. Like it will add a validator. And for other case, what we have to do is if agree is not checked, then we have to clear the validator, correct? So let's check, is there any method that exists with the name validator? Okay, async clear. Okay, clear validator is there, so you can use that clear validator method. And let's see what happens on the page. So by default, the agree button is unchecked. I'm going to add values. So state is true because we haven't specified the city field as in required. If we check that, see, it became invalid. I think. Wait a minute. Let me check. What did I used on the page? It is valid. Oh, city, correct? City. And in here, let me see if that particular function is getting called or not. Okay, first one, because that could be the reason, or there may be an error in the console. Okay, so the file name is user profile model, and inside that, let's put a debugger here. What is agree? Oh, wait. Agree value is true. When it is true, then go and set the validator of city control as in true, as in required, which is correct. So let me fill in these fields. The field state is false. If I remove it, it will clear the validator from the city field. And you can, somehow the form state is not updating. I don't know the reason. Maybe I have missed something in here. Let me do one thing which I generally do. I don't think so that could be the reason, but before it is, no, that this is not the reason. Generally you should be doing clear validator, but that should not be the reason over here. I'm using city is okay. City, give me a moment. Okay. Right now the form state is false. I clicked it. You added a validator. Form state is, okay, sorry. Form state is true, still true. Okay. Before, let me check the last thing. Then we can, maybe I can fix this letter. Sorry for now if it is not working. So inside the form field, you can see there are controls, and inside a control you can see the city field. City field should have validator, and that validators. Validate. Okay. Anyways, I think it is somehow I'm missing something. So otherwise so this is the way you can add the validators in your form if you need it on demand. And similar way you can also add a controls like this. Suppose same way, if I get a hold of this dot profile form, so I can add a control. Add control. The validation is not coming because I haven't specified the type. The same way you can add a control, you can remove control on demand, like the way we add the validators. Add control, remove control, set control. Yeah, I think I also wanted to cover the form array, but I won't cover that because of time. So I think Also, I had to cover a simple example of how to create custom form control for reusable component in case of your particular project need. So yeah, basically I may share this on Twitter, the whole repository with end-to-end example. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter on this with this handle Pankaj Parkar. Yeah, thank you for listening. Hand off to you, Suhas.
Yeah, thanks, Pankaj. So it was actually good. So no slides and only live coding. So it was more practical. So let's just wait a couple of minutes if there are any questions, Pankaj. Okay, so Guru Raj has a question. So need to call update value and validity after set or clear validators. You're on mute, Pankaj.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Actually, what I have seen about the update value and validity function is mostly you would, if you are modifying any value of form control, just by getting it from the controls array without using .get. In those cases, you have to explicitly call update value and validity. So what my guess is, like when you do controls, your form group name dot controls dot control name, that time somewhere somehow it refers to a snapshot of your form group. I'm not pretty sure, but when I was doing that, in that case only I had to call the update value and validity function. So in case of validators, you I don't think so. We need to call update value and validity. I think so. I missed that. I think so. I can check that quickly because the code is there. So let me see. You're correct. Uh, because we eventually saying that the whole form thing has been updated. The controls has to be read one more time. So I think it should work. Yeah, I will try that. Yeah, till the time we can. I hope I have answered your question. Suhas?
Yeah, so Maniraj has a question, Pankaj. So what is the difference between these two methods in creating form group in reactive form, and in which scenario we should use one or other?
uh, what is difference between these two methods? Okay, so one is like what I can say, the one showed you, like, okay, adding new form, and okay, there is no difference in a way when it gets compiled to a JavaScript. But in verbo's perspective, some people, I don't feel better while reading the whole syntax new form control. I prefer to use the array syntax, but the one way is very specific, the way of explaining, and there is one more syntax. I can also show that. So there is no specific way you should follow. There is no good reason for that. If you feel the new form control, then parenthesis and your object, that way feels better for you, then use that. Otherwise, use the square bracket array. I use square bracket array because eventually the form control won't be there in my file itself. So no other way. So let me share my screen quickly and to show the other one more way. That is also better in case of you want to uh, wait a minute. So the other way is, suppose I am just, can you see my screen?
Yes, Pankaj. Yeah.
Okay. So the other way is like this. You can also say agree, then value, and then your value. Then you can say disabled. This is helpful in case when you want to define a field and that should be disabled. That time you would be using this syntax. And in some cases, with this syntax, you can't add a validator. So for adding a validator, you have to wrap this field inside square bracket and then add a validator as in second parameter. Like same way what you do in this syntax. So yeah, there is no specific way. Whatever feels better for you, use that. I feel this as in better to read, so I use mostly this one.
Mhm. Okay, I think hope that answers his question. And yeah, so they suggested live coding was awesome. So thanks, Pankaj.
Thanks, Uday. Sometime error when you stuck at
Okay.
errors.
Okay,
It
so I
is,
think that's all the questions.
yeah, go ahead.
So before concluding, sorry, Pankaj, you said something?
No, nothing. I said
Okay,
like
okay.
when you stuck at live coding, it is worst part.
Agree. I know that feel, bro.
Yeah.
Okay, so before concluding, guys, so I'm seeing like 11 people are watching the stream. So it was a lot of technical, I know. So before concluding, so we are going to play a small game in Kahoot. So if you go to, so all the, so let me share my screen, guys. So basically, this is kind of a puzzle. So there will be 10 questions, like you can just simply answer. Um, yeah, so Pankaj, so can you able to see my screen? Yeah, okay.
I
Okay,
can.
so okay. So whoever wants to take participate in the game, like you can just go to Kahoot.it. So if you just enter, so it will be asking you to enter a game pin, something like this. So everyone can go to kahoot.it. So basically, it kind we are going to play some puzzle which has 10 questions. Basically, multiple choice questions. You can just answer it. Okay, so let me give you the OTP. Um, okay, so it says ready to join. So I'll mute myself. So this is the pin, guys. So 218-6260. So this is the pin. That this is the same screen you might get. So you can just enter this game pin and you can just say enter, and it will ask you a nickname for you. You can just give your name and you can just join in. So Santosh Pankaj, like if you're also interested, you can just join in.
Yeah, I'm trying it on.
So okay, that's cool. So let me create a banner for that pin. Okay, so this is the game pin, guys. Like you can join using that pin. Yeah, I am seeing two players, Uday and Maniraj. So it would be good if we get a number around 8 or 10. Uh, yeah, red. Okay, that's a different name, I guess. VR. Okay. As of now, we have four players, so we'll wait. We'll wait around 2 minutes. So basically, the URL is kahoot.it. Okay, Santosh has joined. 5 players. So this is the URL, guys. Okay, about 7. Okay, so before starting, so there'll be a question. The answers will displayed in this respective screen. So you have to press the respective symbols. So once you get to the first question, you will be able to understand it more better, I guess. Okay, so I'm just waiting for one more player. Let's see. Okay, I think seven should be fine, I guess. Okay, so we shall start. So I'm going to just start the game. Okay, so basically it would be a CL order. So that's going to be a first question. So this is the first question, guys. So who walks on four legs in the morning, two legs at noon, and three legs at night? So you have to just choose the respective symbol which you see on the phone. Okay, so there was two answers. Yeah, Santosh got it right. So it was man actually. That's good. So we'll go to the next question. So 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. 60 minutes equal to 1200 seconds. So it's a true or false. 1 hour equal to 60 minutes. 60 minutes equal to 1200 seconds. So is it true or false? Okay, I think three got it right. Okay, Santosh is at the top. Okay. The next question is how many months have 28 days? One, two, none, all months. Okay, I think two. Okay, 2 months and one got it right. I think it should be Santosh, I guess. Yeah. So he has a streak of three. We shall go to the next question. So I start with the end with T and I have T in me. Who am I? Okay, transparent. Okay, again Santosh. Okay. Okay, I'm a part of your body. You can hold me in your left hand, but not in your right hand. What am I? This will be, I think everyone will get it right. Two answers, three answers. Okay, right hand. You got two right answers for it. Okay, he has five correct answers. That's good, Santosh. So your third place right now in a race. What place are you in when you pass the person in second place? Okay, so that was quick. Three answers. Four. Okay. Okay, first. I think no one got that right. Okay, so basically the answer is first place. So if you cross a person who's in the race in second place, if he crosses, he should be in the first place. Okay, Santosh, you lost the streak. Okay, so divide 30 by half and add 10. So what will you get? Divide 30 by half and add 10. What will you get? Okay, one right answer. So it's 70. The explanation is 30 by 1 by 2. So the 2 goes to the upper part and 30 into 2, 60. 60 plus 10 is 70. So who got it right? Okay, Guru Raj got it right. Okay. So there are 45 apples in your basket. You take 3 apples out of the basket. How many apples are left? So there are 45 in your basket and you take 3 out of it. How many apples are left? Okay, two got it right. So we didn't mention how many apples are left in the basket. So it's just how many apples are left. So it's the same 45. Okay. I think among the alphabet letters, which makes honey. Okay, I think this should be easy, I guess. Yeah, the letter B. Okay, someone got it H. Okay, because of the starting letter, I guess. But the right answer is B. Okay, we are the last question, guys. So, what goes up but never goes down? So, what goes up but never goes down? Okay, on age, bird, and aeroplane. Okay, the age is the right answer. Okay, I think the puzzle's podium. Third question goes to Pankaj. Okay, second goes to Gururaj, 3 out of 10. Yeah, Santhosh. I guess, yeah, it's you. I think 7 out of 10. Okay. So fourth one is VR and fifth one is Maniraj. Okay, so that's good, guys. I think hope you enjoyed it. Okay, so we are at the end of the closing note. I think over to you, Sundaram, to wrap the first event of ng-keralam.
So I would like to say a very big thanks to our speakers, Santhosh and Pankaj. And I hope this sessions will be very useful for the people who joined today, and they can start learning NgRx and the forms. And thanks everyone for joining the event and showing your support. And you can see our Twitter handle. You can follow for the upcoming meetups. Once again, thanks to our speaker. Bye, everyone. Stay safe. Stay home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Pankaj. Thank you, Santosh.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye.